and welcome to another episode of Radiant Central, and I'm your host, Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So today I want to talk about a question that someone sent me through email this week. Someone had asked me if fat makes you fat, and I thought this is a great question because I hear this statement a lot, and it's a very misinformed, generalized statement, and I find that it's too generalized. It's too much of a blanket statement, and it just sends people in the wrong direction. And there is some truth to this, that some foods that are super high in fat will make people fat, definitely. But there's other foods that do have a lot of fat in it that are not going to make people fat. And so I want to kind of clear this up, and I want to share kind of how I see it. When it comes down to foods that are high in fat, I tend to put them into three different categories. There's either the first category is super high fat foods that are going to make you fat. Then there's the next category, which is foods that are high in fat that are not going to make you fat. And then there's the category of in between, where these foods are very high in fat, and if you aren't mindful of the portions you're eating, you can very well gain weight. Okay, so three categories. And now I'm going to kind of explain each category. So you get a little bit of a better understanding as to where the statement comes from, and really where does fat makes you fat really apply to? What are the foods that this applies to and where it doesn't? I think once this is kind of cleared up, then you're going to make way better decisions with your food and choosing your food and what you're going to eat and why, and get rid of any of that fear of fat, because really you shouldn't be afraid of fat. It's not fat in general that is making people fat. It's a combination of things. Okay, so what are the foods that are going to make you fat that are high in fat? Well, I would say any of those processed foods. Okay, processed foods meaning foods that are not even really made out of real ingredients. They're just they're factory-made foods like chips or ice cream, or fried foods like French fries or donuts or pizza, things like that. These foods are just made out of ingredients that are refined ingredients. Okay, and the one thing with these foods is what they have in common is, yes, they are high in fat, but they're also high in carbohydrates. So I find a lot of times it's a combination of the two. You know, it is the high fat in it that's making obviously it a high calorie meal, but it also has to do too with it being a very high carbohydrate food as well. And so it's a combination of it, and most of all, it's a processed food. And I find that processed food over time, if someone's eating too much of it and too regularly, it's going to cause havoc on the body. And so over time, people are going to gain weight eating this stuff. Okay, eating ice cream, eating chips, eating like fried food, fast food, all that kind of stuff is a recipe to gain weight. Okay, that's just how it is. Okay, and it's because, yes, it's high in fat, it's high in carbohydrates, it's high in calories, and it's just high in toxic chemicals, toxic ingredients, artificial ingredients, and all sorts of refined and processed ingredients and foods in it. Okay, it's just, in general, those foods are just not good. It's not good for your health. It's definitely not good for your waistline. Right? So that's the first category. Those are the foods that are going to make you fat, and yes, they will. Now, the foods that are high in fat that are not going to make you fat, I would say, are natural foods that are just naturally high in fat. Okay, and that would be an avocado, would be eggs, it would be fatty fish like salmon. These kind of foods, they're high in fat, yeah, but they're not going to make someone fat. I've never had someone come up to me and say, Natasha, I'm eating way too much salmon and it's making me fat. I've never had someone come up to me telling me that they're overeating eggs and it's making them fat. It just doesn't happen. It's a natural food. And yes, it's high in fat, and it contains essential fatty acids and fats that your body actually needs. You know, we need fat in our diet, okay? It shouldn't be completely eliminated. And these foods are just naturally higher in fat. I also find with these foods is that when you're eating them and you have them in your diet, it's giving you the fats that you need, and therefore you feel satisfied. You know, and people are not overeating that stuff. You know, sometimes people think that like they're getting fat from avocado. It's not really the avocado. A lot of times it's all the chips that they're eating with the avocado. Or if they're making the avocado and having it with a lot of breads and a lot of refined foods, it's more the combination of the two as opposed to just eating avocado. I really don't think that people are getting fat from eating avocado. So those are the foods, natural foods, that are high in fat that are not going to make you fat. No way. Okay, and then there's the foods in between that are natural foods that you have to be careful with. Okay, and these two things are nuts and oils. I have to honestly say that with oils, I consider oils to be a processed food. It's a processed food derived from natural food, but it's still processed. Okay, and does that mean I don't eat oils? Yes, I do eat oils, and in fact, I make my own oil. I've made a video showing how I make my coconut oil, and that's pretty much the only oil I use. Here and there I might use olive oil or something like that, but mainly I just like to use my homemade coconut oil because I make it fresh, I make it on my own, and I like it. So, but when it comes down to using oils, I know it's a processed food. I know that it's a dense processed food. It's very high in calories, and if I overeat that, then yeah, I can very well gain weight. So I'm very careful with the amounts I use. Do I completely take it out of my diet? No. I like to use it in my salad dressings. Like to use it to saute vegetables. I like to use it in my cooking and in my baking even too. So it's something I like to use, and it's a staple in my diet, but I am very aware that it's very high in calories. It is a refined food, and I have to be careful. And so this applies to all oils, not only coconut oil, but any kind of oil, and even the cold pressed organic oils. All of those, you have to be aware that they are high in calories. They are a processed food, and if you're trying to lose weight, you've got to be aware as to how much you're using. Don't go overboard with it. Measure it out. And my suggestion is when you're having oils, not to go more than having like a tablespoon in your salad dressing. Don't be putting half a cup of oil in there, especially in one meal. That's that's going to make you fat. And the second thing is having nuts. Okay, I'm not talking seeds either, I'm just talking nuts, because seeds I find to be much lower in fats and higher in carbohydrates. So that's a separate category. But nuts are high in fats, and nuts are high in calories. And if someone's overeating those, they could very well be gaining weight. And the reason why I kind of put nuts in a different category from avocado or from eggs or coconut or things like that is that with nuts, if you're actually out in nature, getting the nut out of the shell or the skull or the bone is very difficult. Okay, so bags of half-kilo nuts are not growing off a tree. It's really difficult just to get one nut out of the shell. And so if someone's out in nature and they find, like a cashew tree, getting the little nut out, it's difficult. So they're not going to be overeating it if they're actually getting it fresh. The problem is that people buy their nuts from the grocery store, and they're buying it in bags, and it's deshelled, and they don't have to put any work into taking the nut out, and therefore they overeat it. So, but if you're out in nature, it would be too difficult to even assemble like a little bag of nuts. It's just too much effort. You'd have a few pieces and then you'd move on. So, and another thing too I find with nuts in general is that your body gives you cues when it's had enough. And if you don't listen to those cues, you'll feel it later on, because for most people cannot digest large amounts of nuts. They can't, no way. Even nut butters, things like that, it's difficult to digest. You can train your body to digest it, but that very well could be why you're gaining weight or having a hard time releasing weight, is because you're not listening to what your body's telling you. And most people's bodies tell them when they've had enough nuts and when to stop. So with nuts, be mindful with the portions. I'd say in general, people shouldn't have more than a tablespoon or two of nuts a day. That's it. You don't need to be like slathering nut butter on everything and eating bags and bags of trail mixes. That can very well be contributing to weight gain. So in general, you want to be eating foods that do have some fats. You just don't want to be overdoing it. And fat is not going to make you fat unless it's foods that are artificial foods. They're processed food, junk foods. Those are the things that you really eliminate them from your diet, so you don't even have to worry about the fats in your diet. Once the processed food and the junk food and the fast food, all that stuff is out of your diet, you don't even need to think about the fats. It becomes a non-issue. It's an issue when you have processed food in your diet, when you're eating fried food, junk food, pizza, ice cream, all that stuff, and every day. Then you got to you got to seriously look at your diet. All right? So this is my little explanation of, is fat making you fat? And if you do need help with your diet, by the way, I am a health coach. That's what I do for a living. I do telephone coaching. I can coach anyone from anywhere around the world. I have a system here in Bali that I can call anyone free of no long distance fees or anything like that. And I do coaching. That's what I do for a living. So if you're interested and you want to know more about the coaching that I offer, you can go to my website at radiancentral.com, click on coaching, and there's more information there. And I offer one session or a package of sessions for 6 sessions. So if you're interested and you need more help, more accountability, and to really talk and work on creating a personalized diet, then definitely contact me because we can put something together. All right, so have a super fabulous day, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.